Hey, this is Steve. I'm using Claude Opus 4.8. I'm going to put Claude in plan mode and talk about separating the core library out from the product features. Right now I'm using mono repo with everything in one repo. And so I'm looking to isolate the core features like subscriptions, billing, accounts, membership, any email stuff. So I'll just start writing this. I'll say, please look at the app domain for the core library subscription. And I'll say, please determine the app domain, which is like everything that's included for the core library. So subscriptions, entitlements, which are like what subscription's going to access what resources, billing, membership, email, etc. And then, okay, so it's going to determine everything that should be in the core library. And I'll say also API, UI, and UI tests, documentation, offline jobs, webhooks. Then look at what it would take to move to separate the core library from product features. I'll say labs, AI services, workers, AI generation, workers, queues, workers, and up here, DynamoDB. So and S3 storage. Okay, I'll put DB here, S3. This is like infrastructure. I'm like overlapping two things. And the parens is like kind of like the functional stuff until it gets to this queues. And put the core library. So I'll put the features in a separate features or functional components. Well, I don't want to say functional because that could be interpreted different ways. Input the product features in a separate library. All right, or separate GitHub repo. And VS Code project. Oh yeah, I also got. Oh shit. All right, thought I lost that. All right, I think that's enough. All right, so while that is happening, I don't know, I feel like this plan mode is really good for this. So I'll show you what is there now. All right. Here's the UI. This is the repo. Here's documentation. Let me collapse everything. Core is the repo. I want to keep this repo name for the core stuff. I'm going to copy everything that's part of the features out of here. So I have to go into the tests, it'll have to identify everything that's for the product features. When I say product features, talking about like all these labs and this video studio thing, even the planner, and then maybe the dashboard and some of the other screens can be part of core, like the dashboard, the settings. Right here, there's settings. In the cloud folder up here, I have all these agents defined and agents for developing, and there's other agents for testing. There's like regression, API agents, pipeline agents, UI agents, quality agents. And then I have scripts that'll execute certain agents to run and do whatever work. So like this is like one of the commands for running all of the test agents. And so there's some instructions in here. I don't want to get too into all this stuff, but there's this stuff inside Claude. Then the GitHub folder, there's some like Copilot instructions, deployment instructions, and then some Dependabot settings, and then all these workflows. For GitHub, there's some test ones, some deploy ones to the different environments. So we have all that. And I guess like anything, like in Claude related to the core, needs to be, like with those agents we talked about, need to be split out. This marketing stuff, although I didn't say that in the instructions, it should. The billing should. The auth agent probably should. Yeah. These lab ones, those are for the features. So those will go to the new one. These other ones I was talking about that are for the core library will stay here. The platform agent stays here. The projects goes. So yeah, you get the idea. So same with the workflows, but workflows it just kind of needs to be copied, and there might not be too much of a difference. That might be relatively easy. Just has to reference the right projects when it does the deployment. It doesn't have to change that much when it when it gets copied for the main stack or something. And this CDK out, that's like all the CDK output compilation that for the infrastructure as code. And then here's all the doc. Claude can develop a lot of great documentation for the code. So there's a lot of documentation in here. You can see it all here. A lot of it's really good, but it's all like internal. And so anything related to the core, we'd want to split that out. All right, the library, this, you can see there, these are different APIs. Oh wait, these are the stacks, sorry, for the CDK. Yeah, anything related to the product features that has to be split out of here, you know, so projects would have to be split out, voice would have to be split out, image, music, video, you know, logs, I don't think there's much in there. Scripts, yeah, there's a lot of utility scripts and stuff, so those we would want to split out. The tests, I talk about that. We have just a test doing like API tests, and then we have Playwright doing the UI tests. And so obviously we'd want to split those out. And then if we look under packages, I think there's more tests and APIs and stuff like that in there. So here's UI, and then there is core. So you have marketing and dashboard split to some degree once you get in here. And then we have products. So yeah, it was like not projects, products. That's probably why I was like thinking products before, but or projects, but it's, yeah, products might be a good name for the other library, you know, with the features I was talking about. So here there is not, it doesn't look like a whole lot. I mean, they have like the text generator, the chat interface, some prompt steps, and then if you look in the core, when you look in the container, see there's like music, this is under core, and there's projects under here, video editor, the wizard, like all this stuff is product related. So what happened was the original plan was to, you know, have at least this stuff isolated, these different app domains for the core and the products be isolated, but for whatever reason, Claude just started putting everything under core. So, and we're just kind of coming back to fix that problem and then separate it into separate libraries to make sure that they don't get mixed up again. And that the core stuff that's really important for the application and the security and users' accounts is solid and never gets changed by Claude. Anyway, we can just like lock it down, you know, because once the core stuff with the subscription and entitlements is thoroughly tested and working, then it's like you can lock it down and not have to touch it unless if you change something with it, you know. So everything's kind of mixed together. I mean, under this dashboard for some reason, which is kind of odd. So yeah, the repo needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And there's a marketing thing. The marketing thing, I don't know, maybe has to be in its own also, because that's not really product related. So it might be a good idea to have 3 repos, but I don't want to get too crazy. One time I tried to split all of the product features out into different repos, like everything here on the menu level. And it was pretty cool at first, but then it quickly became evident that it was like really hard to maintain. Let's see where Claude is. A full map of the domains and the coupling between them. Before designing the separation plan, there are a few strategic decisions that materially change the approach. It's asking, how should the product repo consume core platform code? The JWT middleware credit deduction tier checks today. Product workers directly import core source files. So it's saying publish its npm packages. That would be cool. Yeah, I'm good with this. Publish to GitHub packages. Product repo installs them. Workers keep direct DynamoDB credit rights. No latency added. Core repo owns version. I mean, you can do this with some of it, but oh yeah, and then just have the APIs. The API still needs to be separated, I think. Maybe it'll get to that. Here's like the API one. The product name is called Core APIs instead of importing the code. I mean, if it don't some of them have to be an API. So, maybe they're just calling APIs from their APIs. I don't know, but I'll go with this first one. I mean, with the recommended, sounds good. I've worked with, you know, creating my own npm packages, and I like that for the most part. Spa stays in core repo. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is fine. Because if it's some kind of UI bug, I don't know that'll be like that darn much, like that bad of an impact. Maybe it's better to phase it, but I did prefer this option where I wanted to move everything even the UI, with its own cloud front. This might be expensive to add some expense. Core spa keeps off building account marketing, requires duplicate op bootstrap subscription contest navigation between the two apps. All right, I'm just going to and the third one, product UI lives and product repo, but are imported into the core dashboard by npm package. Yeah, that might be good too. I don't think this last option seems pretty good. Why does it need to be rebuilt? And every time the product UI, the core, they want the core to be the main one. Yeah, I think maybe I'll split it out later though. I mean, it's kind of a tough call. It says what happens to the React spot today? One dashboard bundle contains both core pages. This one seems like the best one. With option 3, core rebuild. Or what? Why is all right? So I'm gonna say okay. Sorry, I got interrupted for a little bit, and then I did some iteration on the planning where I was talking with Claude on that last decision about how to compile the front end, and we made the decision that the front end should be publishing the UI to like another library, the UI npm components to UI npm packages, and then the backend is in these backend packages, and then the products consume those from the core. This is like describing all the details about it. Let's see, there's some decision points and stuff, and all the steps in the plan. And I was just asking if we needed two UI shells. The UI shells are like containers for the other components. It's saying, as currently written, the plan has two shells, two running spas, core repo, keeps its dashboard app, auth billing settings, admin marketing. On a subdomain, VisualForge repo gets a new shell with the lab UIs, both imported into Nero Core UI for the shared building block. I don't understand why it keeps wanting to import the UI into the core when it should be importing the core into the products. That mirrors the backend. It says it mirrors it. Core deploys its own API routes. Yeah, that's true. Product deploys its own both share packages, but the front end. But I think like the product is always calling. I mean, I guess so. The product is always calling or referencing these core packages that are calling the core API. So it's kind of like an SDK. And in my opinion, the front end code could just live in a package that's consumed by the product. But on the front end, it has a real UX cost to CloudFront distribution if incognito shared across. The alternative, and what I think you've been pointing at, is one shell on the product repo, single spa, VisualForge routes one session. For this to work, Core has to publish not just building blocks, but actual code core pages. The product shell imports them and composes core routes, lab routes together. Core then deploys no front end at all. The UI is package only. Yeah, exactly like its backend becomes the packages. That's what I was trying to say. Oh, so the trade is two shells, strict repo independence, but UI split UX versus one shell, single seamless app. The core ends no running website, just API and npm package. I'm not sure if I'm totally getting it. I lean towards one shell in the product. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's consistent with your import into core product, like API framing, control plane, you all. All right, so one shell and product repo. Recommend. Single deploy spa at VisualForge.ai core. UI publishes the building blocks and core pages. Yeah, that's all getting published to an npm package. Core deploys no front end UI is packages only. Seamless single one cloud front. Yes, is exactly what I wanted. All right, that's like that could have been a major headache and problem, and I probably would have done like a day worth of work and then realized it, or had Claude do like all this work, and me obviously testing and working through like weird little problems. Yeah, this I think will greatly simplify everything rather than the other option. So I'm pretty happy with the direction things are going now. But this just kind of shows where like experience really matters when you're vibe coding, and you got to pay attention to detail. And I'm kind of like good for some reason. I don't know why, because I'm a sucky reader in my opinion. I'm just kind of good at like skimming stuff and finding the things that are a potential problem. Like, I mean, I'm definitely not reading through all this shit, I'm not really skimming all of this right now, I was just looking at the high level plan. I mean, I'm skimming it a bit, but not this team. It's kind of ugly. So. I don't know, but I like the high level plan. I'm kind of expecting that if it doesn't, like I'm trusting Claude to stay consistent with the plan, and I'll verify it later in all these details. I mean, not every single one, but something will come up in a bug if it's not working. I'm like trusting that Claude will stick with the original plan, do its best to implement it. And if there's any problems, we'll catch them in the regression tests. And I mean, I don't know if Claude talked too much about the test plan, but we have all these test agents, move tests, talks about moving them, and then it talks about decommissioning. So it didn't even talk about testing before the decommission, which is a little funny. But maybe that's in some other thing. These are kind of like high level plans, I'm sure. So this is phase 0, which is kind of just like I think like in Agile, they have a sprint 0 where you kind of do like this planning work that's like internal, non-functional, like stuff that isn't like the customer is not aware of, on the back end. Like the functional stuff is kind of like the products that the customers use. The non-functional is all of this security and stuff on the back end, in the way things are designed, like the technical stuff. So I gotta say yes. And so that's kind of like what we're doing in phase 0, kind of dealing with like the planning for everything. Right now, it's about 3:30. I think I started this about a half an hour ago. If you minus the time for the break I took, maybe an hour, probably more like an hour. I don't know. Just kind of working with Claude, reviewing this, planning it, dealing with the recording. So we'll let Claude do its thing here. And then when we come back, I'll give you a little preview or overview of what it did. And then and then we'll move forward. Okay, so phase 0 is complete. Here's what landed deliverables. Assessment doc. I think we got a preview of that earlier. GitHub, Epic. So it created a bunch of issues. One thing that changed the plan. Verifying the seams turned up the headline. Finding the product core boundary doesn't physically exist yet. Yep. Most of product backend code lives inside the core package. Yeah, that's what we were looking at earlier. Yep. Everything is inside this core folder. So I mean, it just has to split them up, but then all the references have to be fixed too. So it's a bit of work. With I expected it to find that before now, but when it was doing its original planning. With 2 or more homes, yeah, product handling research, for code by deep relative paths, yeah, not package specifiers. Like I already expected that because it's all on the same code base. So the migration is a detangle, not a relocation, which is exactly why phase 1 has to come first. Okay. Your decision baked in product, core, both tiers via publish NPM packages. Workers keep direct DB credit rates. Yeah, that's good. One SPA, VisualForge repo, and core ships as packages. Deploys no front end for core. Separate CDK. Same accounts, SSM contract, VisualForge, stage naming. Yeah, that's fine. Names for Neuro Core Services and Neuro EUI and VisualForge. All right, now the only other thing, which is I don't even know if I want to do this now, but okay. Hold on. No, I'm commenting. I did not commit or committing. I did not commit or push the doc. The doc fully pushed the demo trigger full. Okay. Let me to commit. I can skip the deploy. Phase 1 kickoff. It's telling me I should review these decision points. The 1 through 5. Where? I said I look at the document. What is the document? Repo separation. All right. There's D1 through 5. There's a warning thing. How do I find it? Just okay. That's the same thing we just talked about. These are okay. Decision points. Shared HTTP API versus function URLs. Parent API is at the 500 recommend product standardizes on Lambda function URLs already patterned. Yeah, it might be a better design or something. I'm not sure why we ended up going starting with the HTTP API route. Public gallery, SSG render, straddles both recommended public green models, use for product. Okay. Cross out drift risk, conditioning. Alright, what is this? Ideas, scheduling, contract ownership, ID, feed, public, living, core, but feed, product. Alright, hold on. There's something. This. Like, copy that. Alright, I want to understand this thing better. D1 simple terms. I think this D1. I guess I don't fully understand what we're changing. Alright, Claude finished the cleanup, deleting some of the empty stacks and unused code, and then doing the phase one, some kind of de-risking of something, and where I'm deliberately holding my decision. Let's see. The domain filtered transfer closure analysis. Analyzed. Okay, so it was just doing the analysis. 4 service files, 6 library files down from the 15. So like be a really good refactor too. I hope in the package, Dynamo client logger, response, resource adapter, user tier, secrets provider, unified credit service, enforcement entitlements, middleware entitlement services, surprises that are actually product 0, genuine core importers despite the names. Okay. Transfer closure, verified clean, committed stack. A couple of documents where I'm holding. Rest of phase one is large outward facing part. 300 import site rewrites across all the functions. Yeah, it's just doing imports, so the build should break, I think, if they're doing like the packages. At the tail of a long session, the risk of breaking the team's build outweighs the value of pushing it through now. Alright, why is it? It's like kind of chatty. I don't understand what he's like refusing to do. Check back in a bit.